All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to our presentation tonight. It is titled Illinois Driver Ed 101, What Every Parent Needs to Know About Teen Driving in Illinois. We're very excited to do this in cooperation with Teen Driver Safety Week. Originally, it was going to be in March, but due to COVID-19, as with many things, it was postponed till this week in October. In the past, we've tried to do various different things during this week to highlight what is one of the most important things in many of our lives, and that is the safety of our children, especially as they are new drivers behind the wheel. For some of you, this may be your second or third or fourth child behind the wheel, but for a lot of you, this might be your first teen learning how to drive in the state of Illinois. And much like many other things in the country, Illinois is unique in what they do and what they offer and what rules are in place in regards to teen driving. So what we're going to do during this presentation is we're going to go over a lot of the information that we know is going to be very important for you as parents and guardians of new drivers. And we're also going to be going over some different information. I'm going to highlight over to the agenda for tonight. So my name is Jim Mihalovich. I'm the Senior Director for Top Driver. I'm here to welcome you and kind of be the MC of things, if you will, today. I'm also going to be talking to you here shortly a little bit more detail about our graduated driver's license program here in the state of Illinois. Also, we have Scott Perino here today with us. He is our regional manager for our Illinois South region. He's going to be talking to you a little bit about the Illinois driver education requirements in the state of Illinois. We also have Virgil Pearson with us today. He's one of our training instructors. He's going to be talking about your role as a parent or legal guardian in the advancement of your son or daughter's driver education. We also have Bryan Kovach here from State Farm. He's going to be talking to everybody about some important information regarding vehicle insurance. We also have Margaret Pearson. She's the regional coordinator of the Illinois Secretary of State's Organ and Tissue Donor Program, which is titled Life Goes On. She's going to be talking to you guys about our organ and tissue donor program here in Illinois. And then we have Mr. Ralph Bayanetto with us here today. He is our regional manager for our North region of Top Driver. And he's going to be talking to you about the Illinois Secretary of State Emergency Contact Database and a little bit more about ourselves and what we do at Top Driver. So with that being said, I wanted to thank you all again for being here tonight and sharing this evening with us, especially as we're going up against Game 1 of the World Series. So we appreciate you guys sharing your time with us here today. Go Rays, by the way. I want to then start by talking a little bit about our graduated driver's license program in the state of Illinois. Many states have some form of graduated driver's licensing. The purpose of graduated driver's licensing is to provide various different opportunities for young drivers to gain skills and practice until ultimately they are allowed to drive independently. These things were not always in place. Back in 2005, we here in Illinois saw a dramatic increase in fatalities behind the wheel for teens in the state of Illinois. Over 12% of all roadway fatalities in the state of Illinois in 2005 were teens aged 15 to 20. And as we know, as adults in the state of Illinois, as parents, as neighbors, as family members, any number over 1 is too many. We should not be losing teens behind the wheel in our state or in any state. So in 2006, Secretary Jesse White created a task force consisting of various different law enforcement agencies, educators, court traffic safety experts, and put the task on them to create a program that's going to help reduce the risk that our teens face here in the state of Illinois behind the wheel. They also reviewed various different studies and research, including a study that was put together by Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. They found that graduated driver's licensing, which had begun at the time in a few other states, specifically out in the Far East, in Maryland, and also in the Northwest in Washington, had been reducing teen fatalities by 21% at that time. So finally, after quite a bit of research and quite a bit of planning, our graduated driver's licensing program in the state of Illinois was brought together in 2008. The initial results of the GDL program were pretty rapid. So in 2007, the year prior to the enactment of the graduated driver's licensing program, we saw 155 teen deaths behind the wheel. During that very first year of graduated driver's licensing, that number went down to 93. And we're very excited to announce today, as there was a press release that was put out today by the Secretary of State's office, that we have now brought that number in 2019 all the way down to 41, which is a 74% decrease from that initial number that we started at prior to the graduated licensing going into effect in 2007. This is very exciting news. However, it's not good enough. As we all know, we need that number to be as close to zero, if not zero, as possible. Every single life of our teens behind the wheel is important. So since its inception in 2008, it has evolved. So the graduated licensing program initially was there just to set permit levels, set restriction levels, which I'll highlight here shortly. But ultimately, we found that even just those basic graduated driver's licensing components that brought that number down from 155 to 93 in a year needed to be extended. So back in 2016, there was even an additional parameter put in place for new drivers aged 18, 19, and 20. You may not know this, but in the state of Illinois, the minimum legal age to obtain a driver's license is 21 years of age without formal driver education. It used to be once you turned 18, you were able to walk into a Department of Motor Vehicles facility and acquire your permit or your license once you passed the test, both written and behind the wheel. But what we found was there were too many individuals just waiting until they turned 18 because that was the magical age at which they now can safely drive. Well, as we know, that's not the case. So now there is mandatory classroom driver education through age 20, which has helped reduce some of these numbers as well. So now what I'm going to do is talk about the specific phases of our Illinois graduated driver's licensing program. So phase one, or the permit phase, starts at age 15. So in order to apply for an instructional permit in the state of Illinois, the applicant must be a minimum of 15 years of age. Once they acquire their permit, they must hold their permit for a minimum of 9 months. They must obtain parent or legal guardian consent in order to acquire that permit. In order to be eligible for the permit, they must be enrolled in an approved driver education course. While on their permit, they have to have a minimum of 50 hours of supervised driving, with 10 of those hours being at night. So when we're talking about 50 hours of supervised driving, that is with a parent or legal guardian in addition to their driver education behind the wheel component. Mr. Perino will talk a little bit more in specifics as to what's covered in the behind the wheel portion of driver education, but those 50 hours are at home with a parent or legal guardian. There are cell phone use restrictions, and these cell phone restrictions, as I'll outline here again shortly, carry on through until the driver is 19 years of age. It is not legal for a teen to use a cell phone in any way, shape, or form while they are driving, including hands-free, until they are 19 years of age. It's an additional distraction that's unnecessary and creates just an exponential increase in danger. And there's also a passenger limit. So new drivers, up until the second year of phase two, which I'm going to talk about here shortly, are limited to one non-immediate family member in the vehicle while they are driving, under the age of 19. So they could have, obviously, siblings, parents in the vehicle, as many as there are seatbelts, so they are safely transported, but they are allowed only one friend who is also a minor during that initial driving phase. Phase two is the initial licensing phase. So once they've met all the previous requirements, including successfully completing driver education, both classroom and behind the wheel, they've had their permit for a minimum of 9 months. So if the applicant received their permit within 9 months of their 16th birthday, they would still have to wait until those 9 months pass before they would be eligible for that license. So keep in mind, this is a graduated driver's license application, and it doesn't come automatically at age 16. There is a nighttime driving restriction. So even though this applicant will receive a driver's license, this driver's license is not the same driver's license that you or I have. It is a graduated driver's license, and they have not yet earned full independence behind the wheel. There is a curfew Sunday through Thursday from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and Friday and Saturday from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. or earlier, depending on your local municipal restrictions. They must also maintain have 0 at-fault collisions or have 0 convictions for a minimum of 6 months before they are able to graduate to the next phase. So during this first year of initial licensing, that permit or those passenger restrictions do continue. But if they demonstrate responsibility and safety for a minimum of 6 months and they've had their license for at least a year, then that passenger restriction may be lifted. However, that curfew, that nighttime driving restriction will carry with them until they reach phase 3, which is our full licensing phase. The full licensing phase begins at age 18 if the student has remained at-fault collision-free and conviction-free of behind-the-wheel offenses. So there are individuals out there in the state of Illinois who may be 19 or even 20 who do not yet have the restrictions lifted for the graduated licensing program because they've incurred convictions and or at-fault collisions during this initial licensing phase. So that being said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transition the program over to Mr. Scott Perino, and he's going to start talking about the Illinois driver education requirements.
All right. Thank you, Jim. So there are classroom requirements for teen drivers in order to take a driver education program, not only classroom, but also behind the wheel. The first of the classroom requirements is that there are 30 required hours for the classroom instruction. The Illinois Secretary of State only allows 2 hours of classroom instruction per day, and so that is usually broken up into 15 days for the class. Obviously, during this time of COVID, we are allowed to have virtual learning. It can be presented virtually during this time, either with a live instructor or via pre-recorded sessions with an instructor. And students that start in a virtual class are going to be allowed to finish the class virtually if and when restrictions are lifted. So in the classroom, there is a permit test prep. Usually the first 2 days of class are focused on preparing for the permit test in order for the teens to receive their learner's permit. And on the second day of class, a practice permit is usually given, permit test, is provided within that second day of class and usually within the student's workbook as well. The rules of the road are also discussed in the class, focusing on understanding and knowing the rules of the road, utilizing information from the latest Rules of the Road edition, as well as the driving school's curriculum and becoming a safe and intelligent driver. Next slide. So obviously in the classroom, we discuss important topics such as right-of-ways, how to handle a four-way stop, many a driver's enemy at some locations. Obviously, having the students understand not only how to navigate these four-way stops and two-way stops and yields, but understanding these right-of-ways and how to understand who gets to go at these intersections, as well as along roads and entrances into businesses and residences. Obviously, the important thing is making sure we yield to traffic. Also discussed in class are proactive driving methods. Obviously, being a proactive driver is the preferred type of driver we want students to be versus a defensive driver. Proactive drivers are drivers that, so they scan ahead and they size up a situation. They want to control a situation ahead rather than just reacting, to a surprising moment. So in class, we tell students that scanning ahead 12 to 15 seconds and checking their mirrors and their blind spots every 3 to 5 seconds allows them to become a proactive driver. Another method is covering the brake when approaching hazardous areas, which is an easy and incredibly safe action that allows you to be ready to stop, which also allows the car also to kind of coast and lower its speed a bit as well, which makes it easier to stop in those situations as well. And obviously, too, one thing we always like to have the students do is plan ahead for the drive itself, understanding their mental and physical condition, as well as the road and weather conditions on the route that they're planning to go, whether it's to school, to work, or to a friend's house. We also discuss vehicle safety and technology in the classroom. Obviously, as we get more and more into advanced technology with vehicles, we're going to use them to our benefit, such as blind spot sensors, automatic braking systems, rear view cameras and sensors and so forth. Those greatly allow and help benefit drivers to become more aware of their surrounding. Also, standard vehicle safety and technology devices such as airbags, seat belts, side impact airbags, cushioned and collapsible steering wheels, safety cages, crumple zones. These are all parts of the vehicle that help keep the driver and their passengers safe in the event of a collision. Next slide. The classrooms will also discuss the dangers of alcohol and other drugs, the effects on the mental and physical condition before and even during driving. Obviously, how alcohol and other drugs can alter the driver's ability to even understand their surroundings, how they would even physically interact with their vehicle. We also discuss legal and illegal drugs and their effects in the classroom, such as, understanding that even prescription drugs can affect a driver's condition, both physically and mentally. We also discuss dangers of distracted driving, which is, we all know that cell phones are probably the most common factor in distracted driving. In this day and age, everyone is on the go and they need to access their email, they need to check their Facebook, they need to do this. Well, we need everyone to understand that using these devices while driving is an immediate danger, and being a distracted driver is being an unsafe driver. And it's not just cell phones as well. It could be anything that takes, the driver's attention away from driving, eating food, talking with passengers, listening to music, grooming, such as, I've seen my fair share on the highway, people shaving, brushing their teeth, that is considered distracted driving, which can be a danger to yourself and others. So obviously there is the behind the wheel component for the driver ed programs. The instructional vehicle requirements by the Secretary of State for the vehicles used by the driving school. There is a brake located on the passenger side for the instructor to use. Probably one of the most important devices in our array of usages for our lessons. We also have a lighted topper displaying the driving school's name, as well as there's decals on the vehicle that indicate to all traffic around them that it is a driver education vehicle. Typically that allows other vehicles to give us, some space around and maybe a wide berth. And the vehicle itself, even though it seems that, these vehicles are taking a beating, they are inspected by a state certified inspector twice yearly to make sure that they're in good working order and that they fulfill that state certification to be a safe driving instructional vehicle. So the role of the instructor in these lessons is to coach and guide the students in learning driving techniques and maneuvers, and to also challenge their abilities on subsequent lessons. When they're driving with the instructor, they're with them for an hour, but they're going to be with the parents for a much longer time. And so we teach them these new driving techniques, and then we challenge them on their later lessons to make sure that they are practicing in between their lessons. Obviously, positive reinforcement on proper vehicle control is important, making sure we are adhering to laws and practices of the state, as well as the rules of the road, things that were learned in the curriculum within the school itself. And the instructor is also going to be meeting with parents to discuss their progress, to help assist the parent when the student is practicing with them. That's something we'll discuss later on as well. Of course, with each driving behind the wheel program, there's going to be an evaluation. On the final lesson, the student is evaluated on their abilities and maneuvers from the previous lessons. This is required by the state that the student passes the evaluation in order for them to be considered completing the driver education program. So obviously this is why it's important for the students to practice with their parents, and why it's important that they come to each lesson ready and prepared to learn. The contents of the instructional program, we go over pre-driving routines such as, as simple as, hey, here's how to adjust your seats, and here's how you start the car. There's the steering wheel, there's the gas and brake. Basic vehicle controls, understanding right-of-way, performing important maneuvers such as hill and parking lot parking. I know in Illinois you don't have a lot of hills, but we need to know how to park on hills anyway. 3-point turns and reverse turns. We also deal with highway merging and driving on the interstate because, well, let's face it, it's the easiest and quickest way to get around in some places. So that's one of the many core components of our instructional program for the driving lessons. All right.
All right. Now we're going to transition the presentation over to Virgil Pedersen, who's one of our training instructors.
Hi, I'm Virgil Pedersen. I'm going to speak a little bit about your role in your team's driver education. As you can see here on the screen, it says it's never too early to start driver education. And honestly, your teens have been watching you drive for years. And that's this first bullet point, being a positive role model. Believe it or not, your student is going to spend, 6 to 8 hours behind the wheel with our driving instructors, 30 hours in a classroom, but they've modeling themselves after you. Yep. All right. Little things you want to watch when you're driving. Your hand position on the wheel, your usage of signals, whether or not you're distracted. Another point on that is when your students are getting ready to enter driver education or while they're in the program, make them active passengers. You want them to be off their phones watching what you do. One of the pitfalls I see a lot as an instructor is I'll have teenagers that are 15, 16 years old, and we will drive maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles from their house, and they won't know where we are or how to get back. And that's usually because all the years they've been driving in the neighborhood, they have their nose in their phone or something else while their parents are driving. Another big thing is you see the bullet point about commentary driving. You can talk about your driving while your teen's riding in the car. Once they start driving, you can have them discuss things to you. Something as simple to relieve your stress, because face it, most parents are a little scared the first time they have to drive with their teen. When you see a stop sign at the end of the block, don't wait till you get on top of it to scream at your kid and be like, oh, are you going to stop? You can look ahead and see it at your normal scanning distance and mention it to your students. Say, hey, what does it say under that stop sign? And you see someone backing out of a driveway, you could say, hey, what's that guy doing? And what that does is it gets them looking further ahead. Other things too are certain rules. You want to make sure that your teen has good habits, getting into the car, asking their passengers to buckle up, checking to see if any lights are on the dashboard. A big thing for me is making sure cell phones are turned off when you get in the car. If they get into that habit early on, it makes it that much easier to keep it going once they become driver themselves. And another thing is making time to practice with your student. This is probably one of the biggest issues I see as a driving instructor. A lot of parents, be it they're nervous to drive with their students, or they work a lot, or whatever the case may be, there may not be time to practice. Well, if you think about it in a real world situation, most parents don't ever stop their kids from doing their algebra homework or studying for history. But in all honesty, if you forget what year the War of 1812 took place, that's not going to kill someone in traffic, but not practicing your driving skills can. It's got a lot of gravity behind it. And I think sometimes in the crazy busy world we live in, sometimes we don't plan that ahead. One of the phrases I use a lot, once I see that a student is safe behind the wheel for the most part, and I'm confident they can drive, I tell parents that this is now your Uber driver. They should forget what it feels like to be in the passenger seat. One of the last things I want to touch on too, when your student's in a driver's education program, it's really imperative when you pick your student up and drop them off that you always arrive at that location early. That way the instructor can talk to you before the drive, if you want to address any concerns. But most importantly, we always want to meet with parents after these drives so that we can communicate to you what to work on before the next drive, let you know of any deficits or things your students excelling at. You know, that communication helps us work together to make your teen a top driver. I'm going to turn it back over now to Mr. Mihaljevic, and he's going to continue on.
All right, thank you, Virgil. Next thing I want to start talking about is some of the various different resources that are available to you as parents of new drivers in the state of Illinois. As I go through these, I'm also going to be sharing things into the chat. So basically, I'm going to drop some files. So if you click on the chat button on your screen, you'll be able to download these to your computer. If you're not on a computer, if you're watching via phone and you would like these documents, I am going to also be sending these out via email to all the participants. So don't worry if you can't get them downloaded, but I'm going to go ahead and drop those into the chat right now. The first one, as you can see on the left-hand part of your screen there, is the newest version of our Illinois Rules of the Road manual. This is going to be extremely important as we start driving with our teens, because this is going to be covering a lot of just the basic knowledge that they're going to need in order to be safe roadway users, and specifically all of the material that's going to be on the test that they will be taking at the Secretary of State facility in order to acquire their permit will be pulled directly from the content in the Illinois Rules of the Road manual. So that is one of the first things that I did share. I also dropped the brochure from the state of Illinois for our graduated driver's license program, which has a lot of the information that I covered earlier in the presentation for you regarding the various different phases of the GDL. One thing I want to talk now about is specifically the process in acquiring the permit, because this is definitely a part of the process that does bring some confusion. So in order, as I mentioned previously, in order to be eligible for a permit in the state of Illinois, the student must be actively enrolled in an approved driver education program, and they also must be 15 years of age. So wherever it is that the student does take driver education, they will be issued a permit application. This permit application is the first part of the process in order to be eligible for the permit. They will need to take that along with 2 forms of identification. What those forms of identification are outlined in that Illinois Rules of the Road manual. The most common ones that are brought is the original birth certificate. Keep in mind that the Secretary of State's office does not accept photo or Xerox copies unless they are notarized. They want the original birth certificate that was issued by the county clerk in the location in which the child was born. The secondary form of identification can either be a social security card and or passport. There also is a requirement for proof of address. For us as adults, this is generally easy. We bring a bill. Most 15-year-olds, unfortunately or luckily, are not usually receiving bills by mail. So there's sometimes maybe mailings that are coming to you from their school. If not, don't panic. There is an affidavit at the Secretary of State facility that you can sign stating that this individual is a minor living at my residence. This is their address. You'll show your identification, and that will suffice the necessary proof of address. And as I mentioned, there is an exam that they will have to take at the Secretary of State facility. That exam is 20 questions, true, false, multiple choice, that is pulled directly from that Illinois Rules of the Road manual, plus 15 sign identification matching questions. So 20 true, false, multiple choice, and 15 matching questions in relation to the signs. So it is very important to make sure that they have a good grasp of the basic rules of the road, utilizing the Illinois Rules of the Road manual, and also where it is that they're taking driver education, that information will be covered. They will also be given a vision test. This is the same process that you went through when you received your license. This is a basic vision test. I will highlight that if the student does wear glasses or contacts, they will be allowed to take the vision test with those glasses or contacts. However, once they pass that vision test and are given their permit, it will have a B restriction. So one thing you'll notice on the actual permit itself is there will be a column for restrictions, and they will have the letter B next to it. The easiest way to remember, B stands for blind, right? It's an easy way to remember, but that means they are not legally allowed to drive in the state of Illinois without their corrective eyewear. So this is where I mentioned that if they are only wearing glasses sometimes for when they're in class to see the whiteboard or otherwise, to attempt the vision test without their corrective lenses to see if they can pass, and most likely they will if they're only sometimes wearing their glasses. That way they can avoid having that B restriction, because like I said, if they don't necessarily need them but have that B restriction, they cannot legally drive without those corrective lenses. It's very important. Their peripheral vision will also be tested. If they pass the written test, pass the vision test, they will then be issued their permit. The permit itself is just a plain sheet of paper. However, the bottom third of that paper is a perforated portion that you can pull apart, and then it folds into about the size of a normal card or driver's license. The other portion of that piece of paper should be kept in your records. That is the receipt, which is going to be important if for any reason the student loses their permit, which we hope they do not. That is going to help you acquire a secondary copy. That physical permit, that piece of paper folded in half the size of a card, is basically the same as our driver's license. They have to legally have that with them at any time while they are driving, whether it be with you, a parent or legal guardian, or another individual who is at least 21 years of age, who has had their license for at least a year, and that license is in good standing. They have to have that permit with them in order to practice at home or to drive with us as their driver education instructor. So this is their first opportunity to demonstrate responsibility in this task of driving and learning to drive. So make sure that they have that with them at all times. The next thing here, when you go to get the permit, make sure that they give you the Illinois Graduated Driver's License Parent-Teen Driving Guide. They should have hard copies there. I'm going to drop the PDF of that file into the chat right now. And one of the nice things about this document is the very last page of the Teen Driving Guide is a 50-hour log. But I'm also going to drop another copy of that in the chat right now for you. This is important because what you want to do is each time that you're practicing, much like Mr. Pedersen mentioned earlier, you want to have a plan. You want to vary where and when you are driving. And this is going to document the date, the location, the weather conditions, and all the various different components that make that drive unique, ultimately totaling at least 50 hours. It may sound like a lot at first, but during that mandatory permit period of at least 9 months, that's not much more than an hour, 2 hours a week. We could easily get to where we need to be. Keep in mind, you've been your son or daughter's chauffeur for quite a while. Now's your opportunity to now then put them in that position. Have them drive once you gain that comfort with their skills and understanding behind the wheel. Allow them to take over driving responsibilities. Maybe even get them a nice funny hat. They can drive you around a little bit. So take advantage of this new driver in the house, and any practice is good practice. So this is an important component as well. We at Top Driver have also put together a parent coaching program. So students who are enrolled in Top Driver also have access to this parent coaching program. Much like our webcast for our classroom course, this is specifically designed for online learning, but for you as parents, because we know this is extremely stressful at the onset when you don't know where to begin. How do I get started? You know, what words do I use? What's the method of instruction? You know, I'm not a driver, a teacher. Why should I be the one in the car with them? We've heard all these things. We understand them, and they are legitimate concerns. We want you to be comfortable. We want you to have experience. And with that, it's going to help you quite a bit. So just something that we offer. So if you are a Top Driver family, which I know some of you are, you may have already begun this program. So we just wanted to make you aware of it. Next, I'm going to pass the presentation over to Mr. Bryan Kovach of State Farm, and I'm going to allow him to take over from here.
Hey, Jim, Scott, thank you very much, and everybody else at Top Driver. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some auto insurance information and really talk about what the requirements are for the state of Illinois, explain some of the different coverages that you'll see on your policy, whether it's with State Farm or any other company. It's all going to be kind of listed the same way, and talk about some of the common discounts and things that you should look out for when it comes to getting a new driver into your household. It tends to come with a little bit of sticker shock when you bring a new driver, a 16, 17-year-old, onto the auto insurance, but there's definitely ways to help with that. So So we're going to take a look here at some of the coverages, and really when we talk about auto insurance in the state of Illinois, you have to have it when you're driving a car. If you're gonna go out on the road and operate a motor vehicle on a roadway, you have to have auto insurance. So what does that mean though? What do you have to have? Is everything necessary? Is there options? Is there ways to pick and choose what suits your situation the best? So the state of Illinois really only requires one aspect of auto insurance, and that's liability coverage. So you're going to see that on, I included a little picture here. This is actually off of a State Farm declarations page. And what that does is it's going to show you the type of liability and the limits of that liability that you have. So liability coverage itself does not protect you, it protects other drivers from you. And the purpose of that is if you hit somebody in Illinois, you would be found at fault for that. So you're responsible for repairing the other person's damage to their car, and more importantly, paying their medical bills if you cause them some sort of bodily injury. So you'll see that in the picture there listed out as bodily injury. In this example, it's 300. So what that means is $300,000 in bodily injury coverage per person and $300,000 per accident. So it would be the same total per accident. Commonly, you'll see 100, 300, so 100,000 per person, 300,000 per accident. In the state of Illinois, the minimum that you have to carry is $25,000 of bodily injury per person, $50,000 per accident. And again, that's to protect other people from you if you were to hit them. The next portion you'll see on there is that property damage line. This is listed as 100,000. Property damage is going to be any type of personal property that you could damage of somebody. You know, obviously, if you hit somebody's car, that property damage would help to pay for the repairs of their vehicle. But other things, you know, guardrails, fences, light poles, if you decide driving through someone's lawn is a good idea, it would help to repair their lawn after you mark it up. You know, to give an example of that, most people aren't aware, light poles, just a standard light pole that you see, those are $12,000 to $15,000 each. So that figure adds up really quickly. So this is, again, part of that requirement where you're going to have at least $20,000 in property damage coverage on your auto insurance. That's it really for the part that's required by the state of Illinois. However, there's a whole bunch of other coverages that are very smart to have. So medical payments is the next one listed here. That's typically you'll see it anywhere from $1,000 to $100,000. This is listed as $50,000 here. This is going to pay coverage for anybody that's inside your vehicle. So if you're in a single vehicle accident, that's going to provide coverage for you. Let's say you go into a ditch and you get hurt or you hit a tree. That'll provide medical payment for you and for each passenger inside your vehicle. The next couple lines you'll see is comprehensive and collision. Comprehensive is going to be anything that's not a collision. So fire, theft, vandalism, glass breakage, tornadoes, hail, all of that's going to fall under comprehensive. Collision, pretty straightforward. That's going to be you colliding into something, or if somebody collides into you. If you choose to use your policy to have your vehicle repaired, that collision coverage that you have there, you'll see that listed $250. That would be a $250 deductible for that collision coverage. The comprehensive doesn't have a number there because that's actually a full, meaning there is no deductible in that option. Some of the other coverages you'll see there, emergency roadside service, pretty standard across most major insurance companies. They'll offer some sort of coverage for that. Uninsured and underinsured motor vehicle coverage. That's in case you get hit by somebody that doesn't have insurance. or somebody that maybe doesn't have enough. If they've got a state minimum policy, but they caused you, say maybe $50,000 in medical bills, ambulance rides, or God forbid a life flight, those get really pricey. So this would help to cover those sort of bills, so you're not left hanging. Some of the other excess coverages, death and indemnity, that would provide coverage in case you lost your sight or a limb, or perished in a accident. It would provide some excess coverage for that. Jim, if we could have the next slide. Some of the other things to take a look at are going to be rating factors and common discounts. Driving history is going to be the biggest thing that you can take a look at, with a very close second of credit. Obviously, tickets, accidents, all of those sort of things are going to affect your insurance rates. Your credit is a huge factor when it comes to any of the major insurance companies. Those things will come into it. I know for young drivers, this might not be something that they have a lot of control over just yet, but as you get driving, as you have a policy in your own name, this is definitely something to pay attention to. Multi-line, multi-car discounts, those are all things to help pay attention to keep the costs down. Again, especially for new drivers. Some of the biggest ones that we see for young drivers under the age of 25 is the good student discount, which is a GPA of 3.0 or higher, and the steer clear discount, which is no tickets or accidents for the last 3 years. For State Farm, the steer clear is specific to State Farm, but there's a lot of companies that have something similar to that. And for new drivers, again, it's listed as no tickets or accidents in the last 3 years. If you just started driving, you haven't had any. So really, it's yours to lose. You start out with that discount. For us, it's about a 15% discount. So that's pretty sizable. The combination of the good student discount, that 3.0 or higher GPA, and the steer clear, it's usually 25 to 30% for premium discounts. So that really, really makes a big difference. Other stuff you might see in there, that accident free or drive safe and save. These are, again, specific discounts to State Farm, but most major companies have something very similar in their program. Next slide, please. And then some of the other common questions that we get are going to be about liability versus full coverage. Really, is that something that you need to take a look at? It just depends, I would say, on the value of your vehicle, whether or not you could justify walking away from the car if it's in an accident and couldn't be repaired, or if you really would want the insurance company to step up and make sure that your vehicle got repaired or replaced in case it was a bad accident. Color does not affect the car, so you can go ahead and get a red car if you really want to. That's no big deal. Your rates won't go up from it. Some of the other questions that we get are, do we have to add my child? Well, with State Farm, when your child has a permit, you don't need to add them to the policy. Really, we're only looking for licensed drivers. A permit's going to be a type of a restricted license, that sort of thing. So we wouldn't be able to add them into our system anyways without an actual driver's license. So no, you wouldn't need to add them while they have a permit. But as soon as they get their license, you definitely should reach out. I know there are some companies that are a little particular about it, so they're going to want, they have time limits as far as 30, 60, or 90 days from when they get their license to when they need to be added onto the policy. So that's something to keep in mind. Feel free, obviously, to reach out to your insurance agent or broker. If you don't have one, or you have any sort of questions about your policy, give us a call. We're always happy to help. I don't care if you're insured with us or not. You feel free to email me, call me. I'm happy to review your policy with you and make sure the coverages that you have fit your needs. And again, it doesn't matter if you're insured with us or not. So keep us in mind, and any sort of questions that come up, feel free to reach out at any time. Thank you very much again for having the opportunity to share some information.
Thank you, Brian. That's great information. So now we're going to transition over to Ms. Margaret Pearson from the Illinois Secretary of State Organ Tissue Donor Program. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, Margaret, you were muted. Hold on one second. All right, you're good now. Sorry
okay,
about
I'm
that.
sorry, totally, yeah, forgot to click that. No, thank you, Jim. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank Jim for allowing us to be part of the Top Drivers Safe Teen Driving Week presentation tonight. I'm going to be talking for the next 5 or 6 minutes or so about the importance of organ and tissue donation, which is a switch in subject here, I realize, and how it fits into high school drivers education classrooms. Next slide, please. There is an overwhelming need for more organ and tissue donors in this country. We do have now more than 110,000 people waiting nationally for life-saving organ transplants. About 4,000 of those individuals live right here in Illinois. Adults and children alike sit on long waiting lists for organ transplants that may or may not come in time for them. And the need for transplants does not discriminate on the basis of age, gender, race, socioeconomic status, nothing. People of all ages are waiting for transplants. To put the number in perspective, the number of people waiting, the 110,000, that would roughly fill Soldier Field twice. So if that gives you an idea of the number of people waiting for transplants in this country. Transplants give tens of thousands of people every year their lives back. So I want everyone to be aware that this is really something that's important and that we do talk about it in driver's ed classes. Next slide, please. The Secretary of State's Life Goes On Organ and Tissue Donor Program that I am a coordinator for has a very, very strong high school driver's education classroom presentation, and we have had this for many, many years now. With the strange times that we're in right now, we are presenting virtually in many, many high schools, but we hope to get back in the classrooms very soon whenever things start to open up. But driver's education teachers statewide do embrace our organ and tissue donor classroom program. Many driver's ed teachers have us back each semester to present to their students. They feel that if they're getting students ready to go in and get their licenses, and that students need to be educated on the subject so that they can make an educated and an informed decision when they go in for themselves and get their licenses. So we couldn't agree more to that point. Many teachers even join in the conversations with their students, sharing their personal stories about people that they've known throughout the years who have had transplants. And many students will actually share with their classmates if they know someone with a transplant. Sometimes they do, and many times it's someone actually within their own families. So we have some very lively classroom discussions. Transplantation is much more common than you may think. And I'll give you a little backstory here. Some of you may be aware that Secretary White, his sister Doris Ivy, received a life-saving kidney transplant many, many years ago now, but it did extend her life for an additional almost 30 years. So supporting organ and tissue donation in the classroom is both a professional and personal endeavor for him. All right, next slide. We did have a couple of law changes, which I want to discuss. Since 2006 until 2018, so for the last 12 years, well, 06 to 18, the donor decision has been a legal one, meaning those under the age of 18, minors, could not register as donors at the driver's facility because of the legal nature of the question, of course. Minors could always be donors, but only with parental consent at the time of donation. Next slide. However, a new law that Secretary White helped initiate and pass that became effective on January 1st, 2018, changed all that. We are now able to register 16 and 17-year-olds as potential donors at drivers' facilities despite their minor status. So any 16 or 17-year-old who says yes to donation at a driver's facility will have the red donor symbol printed on their driver's license or state ID, indicating their intent to be a donor someday. So parental consent for minors is still required at the time of donation. That didn't change. But teens now have been included on the donor registry in Illinois supporting donation for roughly the last 3 years. We absolutely encourage teens to have the donor discussion or conversation with their parents and guardians at the time they sign up. This should be a family discussion. Everyone should share their thoughts about it when they sign up and let their family know. Even though their family's permission isn't required unless they're under the age of 16, their family may become very involved in that decision if it does happen someday. So letting their parents know about their support for donation gets everyone on the same page within a family and encourages an important family conversation, which is very, very important. Everyone who signs up to be a donor needs to share that with their families. Next slide, please. To date, we have registered about 155,000 16 and 17-year-olds in Illinois. So we are really happy with that number. The numbers are increasing every day, every month. We get the reports monthly, and we're very, very happy about that. We did just pass the 7 million registered donors mark in Illinois early this fall, actually. I think it was the end of August or 1st of September. So we do have 7 million donors in the state of Illinois right now, and teens are joining that number to say yes to donation in Illinois to help, potentially down the road someday save more lives. And it's very, very easy to register to be a donor. Just visit our website at www.lifegoeson.com. It just takes 30 seconds, and you could save as many as, make life better for as many as 25 individuals someday with organs and tissue transplants. So thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. That was a great presentation, and it's definitely something that we should all consider. There's many people out there that I know would be greatly appreciative, and just one person, I believe, Margaret, correct me if I'm wrong, could save 20 plus lives.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely. Something to think about.
Yeah, it's not the most comfortable conversation or one that you'd like to have, especially with your young teens, but
Exactly.
it's definitely one that's important to have. So next up, we'll have Mr. Ralph Bandetto, our Illinois North Regional Manager, who's going to talk a little bit about something that's important and another aspect of our Illinois Secretary of State database. Oh, sorry, Ralph, you're muted. 1 second.
There it is.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, the wonders of Zoom. Who hasn't said, sorry, I was on mute in 2020. So, Margaret, thank you for the work you're doing at Life Goes On. I have an aunt in Michigan whose life was saved by organ and tissue donation. It's something very near and dear to me. So thank you for
my
that.
goodness. Absolutely.
So I'm talking to you parents today about the emergency contact database, something that I wasn't aware of until my employment with Top Driver. This is a program hosted by the Illinois Secretary of State because it's attached to your driver's license or state ID or learner's permit. Any person who holds one of those documents is able to apply and become a part of this database. So you have to opt in. This was established in 2009 in order for people to have contact information connected to their account with the Illinois Secretary of State. It's used in the case of emergency by law enforcement, either police, paramedics, firefighters, in case there's some sort of incident in which your child is involved or you're involved and no one is there with you. And they can find those who you've established as the emergency contacts and let them know of your condition and potentially your location. If you're in a crash and taken to a nearby hospital, then the emergency responders can find you the emergency contacts and let them know that. We're going to go over how to enroll in that in a little bit. You can modify your information in the database at any time, and anything that you had previously recorded in the system is deleted, so they're not holding on to old information that may identify you. And then you can identify 1 or 2 emergency contacts to be your emergency go-tos. They don't need to reside in Illinois, which is nice. And then you are expected to notify the people that you have selected as your emergency contacts so that they can know that if they're getting a call that this is a legitimate thing. Obviously, we have to be sensitive that there are people who are looking to take advantage of others. And if you let someone know, hey, you might get a call from law enforcement someday saying I am at Lutheran General Hospital, then that's a good thing, a piece of information to have so that they are aware. Jim, would you go ahead and click that link? So we're going to show you the Illinois Secretary of State page. Sorry, my baby monitor here is giving off some noise. Sorry about that. So the Illinois Secretary of State webpage has the enrollment where you can go and enter your information here. There's like an alphabetical directory of And Jim, I think you need to switch to the browser share.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. There's an alphabetical directory of the web pages within the Secretary of State's site where you can click and enter this information. And I just wanted to show you how simple it is to enroll. There, it's on my screen now, and hopefully you all can see it. So that's Secretary White's page. And if you scroll down, there's an alphabetical index there of things you can click, including the emergency contact database. If you can go ahead and click that, Jim. And then if you scroll down there, there's some additional supplemental information, and you can register yourself by clicking that blue button at the bottom. So you can go ahead and click that. And then you choose which document you're going to use to connect yourself to the database. And then you would enter in things like your driver's license or learner's permit number in there. And then you can start to enter the information for your emergency contact. So I won't go further into the page here. Jim, you can go back to the slides at this point. Thank you. But it's very easy. It took me 2 minutes to set up once I had learned about it. And I would definitely encourage you as parents to have that peace of mind that when your child is out there on the road, God forbid anything should happen. You know, obviously we as driving instructors are doing everything in our power to keep your children safe, but should the worst, thing happen and your child is in a crash and unable to respond and get to you, that emergency contact database could be the line that connects you to them in that event. So definitely a good resource for parents to know about this and get your kid registered as soon as they get that learner permit or their driver's license. Go ahead and set this up so you have that peace of mind. And then with the last part of my presentation here, I want to talk about what makes us as a driving school different from the rest. Again, we appreciate you taking the time to meet with us tonight. We wanted to host this as part of Teen Driver Safety Week to kind of connect you parents with the process of getting your children behind the wheel. And we do feel like we provide the difference between a run-of-the-mill driver education experience that you might get at high school or one of our competitors. And that comes from us being the largest in the Midwest. That's not an accident. We've been successful in every community we've entered. We have 40 locations scattered from the Wisconsin border with Lake Villa Top Driver all the way down to Starved Rock in Ottawa. We have a partnership there with a school in Ottawa. We have partnerships with high schools, private schools like Loyola and Montini. And we are a contracted partner of the largest high school district in the state, which is District 211, servicing Conant, Schaumburg, Palatine, Hoffman Estates, and Friend. We've graduated over 275,000 students through our program, and we feel like we are part of the difference in that 74% decrease in teen fatalities since 2004. It just so happens we were founded in 2003, so there's a nice correlation there between the numbers going down and our entry into the market for driver's education. Our curriculum always addresses current trends, things like distracted driving, the influence of marijuana, which, the rules regarding that were relaxed recently. We'll talk about what you can and can't do in regards to recreational marijuana. We'll talk about the effects of fatigue driving on drivers, and we'll talk about how teen behavior affects how our teenagers drive. You're gonna find that the biggest distraction that kids have in the car is their friends, and that's why the laws exist to help limit the number of people in the car. And we will definitely go into what to do in that situation. I've had students have difficult conversations with their friends about what they're doing in their car and why that can't continue. And if it does, then I've had to tell my students, look, you need to have that conversation that says, you don't value the safety and the lives of the people in this car, and you need to no longer be a passenger in my car. And that's something we address head on in our classes. It's not just a process by which kids go through our program and get their licenses. We want them to be lifelong safe drivers. That is our mission. Our curriculum is updated every 2 years and always addresses the most pressing needs, and it's home baked. We have Jim Halovich here, who's got advanced degrees in education. He has a master's in education with Eastern Illinois, and he is very up to date he goes to conferences, he attends curriculum meetings, and he wrote this curriculum, and it is something we're very proud of. We don't work out of a textbook published by a national publisher who doesn't understand Illinois laws. It's very local to what we do, and we're a local company. We're owned by a couple from the western suburbs, and they've worked very hard to build up the company, and we are all proud to work for them. There's a lot of convenience when you sign up for Top Driver. The classroom and behind the wheel lessons can be conducted at any of our locations. So if you resided in Northbrook and you went to Wilmette Top Driver, you went to Arlington Heights Top Driver, that would be fine. You don't have to be restricted to the one that's local to you. Obviously, We want to service you at the location you signed up at, but you have all of those options available to you. Along with that flexibility is our streaming curriculum. You're not tied to the computer from 6:30 to 8:30 watching a Zoom class with an instructor at a certain time. You can watch the curriculum when it makes sense to you. You know, if Sunday at 9:30 p.m. makes the most sense for watching our class, then you can watch it then, and you can watch it for half an hour if you only have it half an hour to watch it. You don't have to watch for 2 hours straight. So you have a really good flexibility when you watch a streaming curriculum class as opposed to the Zoom videos that are offered elsewhere. We also offer a convenient service in terms of scheduling. Everything can be done online through our portal, and we'll provide email reminders for lessons, and you can even reach our customer service center, which is based in the United States. It's not going to send you overseas. We have a call center of about a dozen individuals working hard to help you with all of your requests regarding scheduling, lessons, questions about permits and licenses. They are there at your service 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. They're available by email. They're available by chat if you prefer to do that instead of waiting online. I know many of you are participating in meetings too, and chatting while you're in your meeting is something you can do. Jim talked about some of the resources for you guys, including our parent coaching program, but we also provide a parent orientation that we even do for the students that are doing virtual class. You don't lose that orientation. We offer that weekly on Wednesdays. You can attend for about an hour to learn about our programs and how best to navigate that. And then you'll also get a personalized coaching session with the instructor after the lessons, where they'll go over what happened during the lesson, what your teenager can work on to improve as a driver, and you can ask them questions about what you can do with your student in order to help them improve and become safer. Our instructors are not only background checked by the Secretary of State, but also by Top Driver. We run through a very detailed background check through our human resources partner, and they are ensuring that the people who come into the cars with your children are trustworthy and well-screened individuals, including drug screens, background checks, driver history checks. These are individuals that we will monitor closely, and we've trained very carefully. So there's a training program that we do online, there's a training program in person, and they are ready to provide that expertise from day one. And then finally, a program that we offer in conjunction with a group called Behind the Wheel of ADHD is our specialized program for students with executive functioning disorders. This can be students with ADHD, ADD, autism spectrum, and again, we have degreed educators in our team, including the one who runs the program, who understand the needs of students with executive functioning disorders. And we want to provide you that experience. Our instructors are trained and certified through the program with Behind the Wheel with ADHD, and you will not find that at every offering, every other shop than Top Driver. So again, thank you for your time. We want to offer ourselves as the difference, and if you choose that, we appreciate it. And if not, then we wish you good fortune with getting your team to be a safe driver behind the wheel at all times. We all share the road. It's a social contract, and I hope to be on the road safely with your team as well. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Ralph. What I'd like to do now is actually open up the floor for questions. So if you would like, you have a couple different ways that you can ask questions. You can do so by unmuting yourself by clicking the button in the bottom left corner, or if you prefer to just type in your question, you could do so via the chat button, which is in the bottom middle of your screen. So if you'd like to type in your question, feel free to do so. Or go ahead and unmute yourself, and I'll recognize you, and we can answer any questions you may have.
I have a question.
Sure.
I live in Michigan, and my grandson is 14 and a half, and in Michigan, you're rated based on your length of time that you have been licensed. So I would like to know, how long can a teen driver have a permit before having to get a driver's license? Can they keep it for like 3 years and then get their license, or do they have to get their license right away?
Unfortunately, the information that we've been covering here today has been specific to Illinois, and I am not very well versed in what the rules are for Michigan. But what I would recommend is actually contacting our customer service center. They have
Okay.
individuals there who do specialize in Michigan law regarding permitting. I know they are different, much like Mr. Perino was talking about earlier. Here in Illinois, we require 30 hours of continuous classroom instruction, whereas in Michigan, they segment their classroom course into two parts. Segment one being 24 hours, where they're covering the core of driver education. And then the second segment, that last 6 hours, which also equates to 30, covers more of the drinking and alcohol and other drugs and distracted driving, more of the affective learning side of driver education. So I do apologize, Ms. Lyons. I can't answer that question. I don't want to tell you anything incorrect.
It's
But I
okay.
do, but
Yeah.
yes, if you reach out to our customer service center, either by reaching out to our 1-800 number or emailing at custserve@topdriver.com, they would definitely be happy to answer that for you.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. I do see some chats that did come in, so let me go to those. There's a question regarding payment plans. So what we can do here in the state of Illinois is allow the student to enroll in classroom only to begin. So you can make payment just to cover the classroom component and then reserve the remainder of the payment to begin once the in-vehicle portion is begun. So yes, that is an option to you. If you'd like specific information about that, like I said, that is something our customer service center could definitely help you with. There's a question regarding the Top Driver student workbook. We have designated pickup dates that have been emailed to all of our new enrollees. We will also be having a parent orientation, as Mr. Bayonetto mentioned. Again, next Thursday will be our next one. Actually, we skipped this week, so and we'll be highlighting. I do believe the next pickup date in the state of Illinois, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bayonetto and Mr. Perino, would be the following Sunday. Is that correct? You're muted, Ralph.
November 2nd is the next pickup.
Yeah,
And
and so at
two
every
Sundays
one of
after.
our education centers, there will be pickup. If that's, if you'd like, you could also pick up at our corporate office, which is located here where I am in Lombard. Once again, if you'd like to schedule a pickup appointment at one of our facilities outside of that general pickup day, give our customer service center a call. They gladly make an appointment for you to pick up with one of our instructors. There's a question regarding how long the students have to complete the online classroom program once they are registered. So from the date that you begin your enrollment with Top Driver until you complete both your classroom and in-vehicle components is 9 months. And that is a Secretary of State rule. So you have 9 months from the start of your program to complete the 30-hour classroom course and the mandated minimum 6 hours behind the wheel plus observation and or additional drive time. There's a question regarding fees for training. You could find all of the potential fees for our various different programs. As Mr. Bayonetto mentioned, we offer various different programs, both the minimum and beyond, and include different things such as potential city drives. We have our specialized program, which the fees vary. So if you go to topdriver.com and type in your zip code, so click on Illinois, type in your zip code. It'll take you to the nearest education center to you. We have over 40 locations in the Chicagoland area, so we probably have one nearby. And then that's going to point you to the specific fees that would be in relation to your potential enrollment at one of our centers. So there's a question if you are an adult. So if you're 21 years of age or older, how do you begin practice driving? There is no maximum age for a learner's permit in the state of Illinois. So there are various adults that for many different reasons have not yet acquired their license, and that is okay. We also do offer adult behind the wheel lessons. So if you are interested in enrolling yourself or a family member into our adult driver education program, we do have that as an option for you. And that's for individuals 20 years of age and older. You can do so by calling our 1-800 number to enroll. They would then have to acquire their permit much in the same fashion as teens do, going to a Secretary of State facility, bringing the important identification materials. The only difference is if they are over the age of 18, they are not required to have a permit application from a driver education program. So once you turn 18, you no longer need a permit from a driving school. You are eligible to walk in as an adult and apply for a learner's permit on your own reconnaissance, if you will. Let's see. The question is, how long can you have your permit before you have to get their driver's license? So the permit at time of issuance is valid for up to 2 years. However, you have the opportunity to apply for an extension if you so choose. So it's automatically valid for 2 years. And if the student is not yet prepared to be licensed at the end of that 2-year period, you would just have to go to a Secretary of State facility to apply for that to be extended.
Just to reiterate something you said earlier, Jim, they have to hold it 9 months before they can go for their license. So if your child got their permit after their 15-year and 3-month date, then they wouldn't be able to be eligible to get their license on their 16th birthday if that's something that is important to them.
Okay. There was another question regarding workbook pickup, but thank you to Ms. Zalatoris that she did mention in the chat that workbooks can be picked up at our Top Driver corporate office. Our address there in the chat is 200 West 22nd Street. We're in Suite 251. We're located here in Lombard. There is generally someone here in the office every Monday through Thursday from 9 to 4. Otherwise, like I said, if you'd like to schedule a pickup date time at one of our facilities, please give our 1-800 number a call. And you also have access. So just to kind of clarify, that student workbook hard copy is not required. You have access to a PDF version of the student workbook that was emailed to you, and also access via your Top Driver Signals account. So if you are a Top Driver student, you can go to your Top Driver Signals account and download the PDF from that page as well. You're welcome to complete the activities in a notebook or loose leaf paper. You don't have to have that hard copy workbook if you don't have it. So don't panic. They can begin the course without having a hard copy workbook. It's just the series of activities and questions that they can work off the computer as well. But like I said, if you prefer a hard copy, you can either pick one up at our corporate office between now and November 2nd, or like I said, give our customer service center a call and they'll make sure, because our facilities are not staffed at all times with someone on site. Especially now with all of our classroom instruction being done online. The only time instructors are present at the facility is either before or after their in-vehicle lessons. So we'd hate for you to go to one of our facilities and there not be someone there to pass out a book for you. So make sure if you'd like one ahead of time and can't make it to our corporate office, to give our 1-800 number a call, and they'd be glad to get you set up with an appointment. All right, there's a question for the final driving test. So as Mr. Perino mentioned, during one of theirs, if not last, driving lessons with Top Driver, they are evaluated. Now, to clarify, the evaluation that they will be receiving on their last drive with Top Driver or any driving school is a driver education evaluation. It is separate and different from the road test that they will be required to complete at the time of licensure. So this evaluation is a basic evaluation. It does include the maneuvers that they will need to understand in order to pass the road test, but the threshold to pass driver education is a little bit different than that to be an independent licensed driver. What we are looking for specifically is to confirm that the student is safe behind the wheel and able to continue on with their practice driving with a parent or legal guardian without the professional intervention of a driving instructor. So we want to make sure that they understand basic right-of-ways, that they have good basic control of the vehicle, they understand the various different traffic patterns and how to coordinate themselves through them safely and properly. As Mr. Perino mentioned, and also Mr. Pearson mentioned, we will be communicating with you throughout the program. And if we're finding that for any reason the student is not progressing at the rate at which they need to be successful, we will let you know and get you on a plan to get them there. Because we do not want, as I would hope any other driver education firm would not want to just progress somebody through the program and give them their license unless they are actually safe. We want to create safe, intelligent drivers. We don't want to just create licensed drivers because, as you know, having a license in the state of Illinois definitely does not equate to safety. Spend a few minutes on a main road in Illinois, and you're going to see quite a few things that are going to be pretty interesting and probably not the best. There's a question regarding what is city driving. So we have a couple different programs. So if you were to look on our website, there's silver, gold, diamond, and platinum and diamond. We use those terms just to differentiate them. But what they mean is how many hours are included in the basic driving program. So as I mentioned earlier, the minimum is 6. You could choose 8, 10, 12. For the programs that include 10 or 12 hours, once the student has successfully passed the minimum requirement for driver education, you have the opportunity to then schedule a lesson as a 2-hour appointment versus the standard 1-hour appointment. What this 2-hour appointment is able to do, which we call a city drive, is get them out into an area that they have yet to be able to encounter due to the constraints of being in the vehicle with an instructor for only an hour. So if we know we have the entire 2-hour period to practice, we're going to get them extended outside their normal comfort zone and get them experience in these different activities and areas so that when they are an independent licensed driver and they are very excited to go on that little mini road trip with their friend, singular, right? On a 1 passenger restriction, they can do so safely. Like I said, safety is key. We are all here for the same reason. You wouldn't be sitting in a meeting on a Tuesday evening on Zoom if you didn't care about the safety of your family and the other roadway users. So this shows right off the bat that you care and we care. We want to work together, not just because it's Teen Driver Safety Week, but every week. We have a common goal is to make sure that your son or daughter is safe and ready to, live their lives without worry as they travel our roadways behind the wheel. I'm going to check the chat for some more questions. These are great questions. Like I said, we have time. I'll be here as long as you have questions, so don't be shy. If you have a question, please continue to ask them. If you are actively enrolled in our Top Driver course and received your welcome email and the login information, you can begin the webcast course even prior to your designated start date. That is fine. Like I said, you don't have to have the physical hard copy workbook. You can download it from our website and they can begin. But keep in mind that the student must be 15 years of age in order to complete our webcast or any classroom driver education course. They are allowed to start driver education at 14 years of age, but they cannot complete until they are 15. So some of you may have teens that are 14, soon to be turning 15 that are enrolled, which is okay, but keep in mind they can't complete the course and take the written final exam until they are 15 years of age. Okay. Oh, I believe there's somebody asking. Ms. Murdoch, are you asking a question? Hold on, let me unmute you. Sorry about that. I just saw you. 1 second. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, thank you. In the days before COVID, what would it be like? I mean, I know everything has to be online now. What would a first lesson be in the car with the student?
Sure. So well, whether it be in the vehicle or technically in the classroom or virtual classroom, we have not changed our instruction pattern. We are following the same curriculum as we were previous to COVID. So the classroom experience that they'll be receiving, although it be via a computer screen, they're going to cover the same curriculum as they would previously, and that includes the vehicle. To provide you with some information regarding our in-vehicle lessons, right now, we are requiring and doing everything in our power to mitigate any potential exposure to COVID-19. We've been operating in vehicle lessons since June 1st. And since then, we've conducted across our 40+ locations, thousands of in-vehicle lessons. And knock on wood, as I always do, we've had 0 transmission events. And that's because both our instructors and our families have done very well to ensure that they're screening themselves. We have a series of screening questions that we ask of our students and instructors prior to ever appearing at a potential driving lesson. We also require that all students and instructors are wearing face coverings at all time and while in the vehicle. As far as what that first lesson entails with a driver education instructor, it actually varies depending on the student. They are not required to have any experience behind the wheel prior to their first lesson, but if they do, then obviously that's going to change it up. So if a student were to come to their first lesson and this is the first time they've sat behind the wheel, we're going to spend time getting them used to the vehicle itself. What are the controls? You know, they may not even know where the gas and brake are in relation to each other, right? So it's very, even though we have a prescribed curriculum that our instructors are going to be following with the students, they are very much trained and experienced with the ability to differentiate the lesson planning based on the needs of the student, whether that's limiting the pace of the lesson planning to make sure that they're gathering those basic skills and progressing, or if the student is excelling and able to be challenged, we're going to allow them to be challenged. We're not going to wait until lesson 5 to get them on the interstate. If they're ready on lesson 2, we're going to challenge them. We're not going to hold them back. We want them to be as safe and intelligent behind the wheel as possible. So we're going to give them that opportunity. So it's a partnership between us as driver education instructors and the parent, legal guardian, and student to get them where they need to be. So we ask that, you know, if there's anything that you're finding when you're driving with them that's providing additional challenges, don't hesitate to let the instructor know at time of lesson, because we're going to incorporate that into the lesson planning. And at the end of every lesson with us, you're going to get a coaching guide that's going to tell you what we did on that lesson, what went well, what maybe didn't go so well, and what we can work on to get us where we need to be on that next lesson. So it's a process, and every little bit of practice helps. Driving, much like any other physical skill, like a musical instrument or a sport, is only going to be mastered with practice. There's very much a cognitive component, a classroom intelligence component to driving, but it is also a physical skill that must be practiced as well. Great question. Any other questions? I see a few more that just popped up in the chat. Let me check those. There's a question regarding how to receive a permit application. So the first step into receiving a permit application is to be actively enrolled in a driver education program, whether it be at their school or with a private driving school like Top Driver. Once they are actively enrolled, then, for example, at Top Driver, we mail those permit applications home. So if you are a Top Driver student that just began your program, you should be receiving in the mail a permit application with some other important documents. If you have been a Top Driver student for more than a period of a week and you have not yet received your permit, please let our customer service center know so we can get you out another one, but those are generally mailed home at the time of the coursework beginning. And I see, Ms. Zalatoris, you already answered the question regarding when the students can begin driving lessons. So once a student has their permit, they then are able to begin scheduling and completing in-vehicle lessons. So the last question that just I see popped up, is there any driver simulation training? So a little bit of history, quick history, I promise, about driver education. At its inception, driver education was what they call 4 phases, right? And many of you, like myself, went through the 4-phase version of driver education. It was classroom, it was simulators. I know myself, I was in a trailer with a reel-to-reel camera and a pretend car, and they took us through some nice and interesting experiences, and you had the great music in the background, and you really didn't get much out of it, right? So then you had range. So you were in school, they took you out to the parking lot, they told you, whatever you do, don't touch the accelerator. We're just going to roll around in a circle for a little while. And then the 4th phase was behind the wheel out on the road. But what driver educators have found over the past 20 years is simulator and range are not giving the student what they need to get to, you know, safe, actual real life driving scenarios. So what we do, and what most driver education programs do, is we give them the classroom education and then that behind the wheel on road education. So we spend all of the time with our students in the vehicle on our roadways. You know, if we need to, we'll start in a parking lot obviously to build up basic skills and not get them into traffic until they're ready. But once the student is ready, we want them getting experience in the real life scenarios that they're going to see once they are on their own. And one of the biggest questions that come in oftentimes, especially now as we're getting into the winter months, whether you're ready or not, it's coming. I know it was kind of storming here as we were about to start the meeting. I'm already ready. This weather is going to turn, and because we are in the upper Midwest, snow is a reality. We want them to get practice behind the wheel in adverse conditions with a legal parent, guardian, or with a driving instructor, so that the first time that they're driving in these scenarios is not alone, right? So I know it's a stressful thing. So, you know, we want them to get experience in any and all different scenarios. All right. That was the last of the chat questions that I see right now. Are there any other questions? We're right at 8:30, which was the proposed end time of today's meeting. But like I said, if anybody has any other questions, I'd be happy to stay on. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up here. All right. Before I close the meeting, I want to once again thank you very much for spending this hour and a half with us here tonight via Zoom for this virtual Driver Ed 101, what every parent needs to know about driving in the state of Illinois. This is very important information. I want to thank the members of the Top Driver Management staff for presenting. I want to especially thank our guest speakers, Mr. Bryan Kovach from State Farm and Ms. Margaret Pearson from the Illinois Secretary of State's office. We very much appreciate you taking your time to be with us here today. The information that you shared is very important to not only the parents in this room, but even to us as instructors. We want to keep ourselves well-versed in all of these topics. So with that, I want to thank you again and let you know that going forward, if there's any questions that you may have, feel free to reach out to us at any time. You will be receiving an email from me just as a thank you with the attachments that I shared earlier. So don't panic if you weren't able to download anything earlier. And like I said, we appreciate your time and good luck and Godspeed with your driving. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.